All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
And hello, all. It is the West Coast checking in. The best coast, the West Coast. It is on. From wherever you join us and whenever you join us, thank you for being here. Albert is in his position in the lifeguard chair today.
Albert, thank you.
Yeah. And Kim in her position in the newsroom.
Kim, how are you?
Yeah. Which is conveniently just several feet from her bedroom.
It's a beautiful life.
It's remote workers, everybody. Cheers, everyone. Cheers.
It's the Nikki Maduro newsroom, the Mark Thompson newsroom, and the After Party Live newsroom.
That's right. It's the newsroom and the Nikki Maduro newsroom. It's all yeah. Well, as I sip on my Coachella Valley coffee, I will tell you we've got a really cool show. First of all, I suppose the crown jewel of the second hour is David Katz, the great former federal prosecutor. Yeah. Even as people are getting sentenced in the last hour, among them a Trump loyalist, we have some stories that are not related to Trump today that do relate to the courtroom and the law, and David Katz will help sort those out. But it is true that in the last hour, there was a pretty big breaking news story. I've got a couple of pretty big breaking news stories. One of them is kind of related to Trump land. It's this Navaro story. But another is related to your world, Commish. Sports and fantasy football. It's a scandal in fantasy football. What? I'm not kidding. I'll get to it in a moment. But I also want to mention that I believe I've got a pretty good It's the Planet Stupid that I may have to do because our darling Belinda has been called away to the doctor's office. So, because she beat back that cancer and everything, we're particularly thinking of her today. So we'll get to that in the second hour. But there is so much to chat about, so much to tell you about, so much to sort out. So let's get in it.
The Mark Thompson Show.
And Peter Navaro is the guy who leads the news in a breaking way. Now, one of the reasons you can hate Peter Navaro is because he was such a smack talker. He's a real smack talker. If somebody is humbly doing the work that is evil, they are in bed with evil. They're co-conspirators. They're carrying the water for evil. In this case, and when I say evil, you know what I mean. Overturning the democracy. I'm sorry. I think that's evil. Okay. A coup attempt. Sorry. Think it's evil. How can you call the former president? Well, come on, man. I mean, violent coup, even the undermining through fake electors and a scheme to essentially overturn the government and retain power despite the people's will. That's evil. That's just wrong, right? So anyway, Navaro was very much a part of that. He was, in the nucleus of what was going on within that Trump crew. So Peter Navaro was out front on it, okay? He wasn't humbly doing the work in back like some of these Trump lawyers were. Not the Giuliani's. Giuliani's another one. He's, out in front. He's smack talking. He's a fire-breathing dragon, making stuff up just on every news outlet. Anywhere there's a camera, like a moth to flame, Rudy Giuliani is there, right? Navaro, same way. Yeah. Used to show up on Fox News Channel, show up on MSNBC. Wherever you are, wherever you need me, I'm another fire-breathing dragon for the Trump administration. And he just talked sick smack. It was like WWE, Albert, do you have any of him? just to remind everybody who Peter Navaro is, and then I'll tell you what happened to him.
A federal judge has sentenced former Trump economic advisor Peter Navaro to 4 months behind bars for defying a congressional subpoena from the House January 6th Select Committee. Navaro was convicted last fall on 1 count of contempt of Congress and another count for refusing to produce documents. Navaro says he still hopes for the Supreme Court to take his appeal on this case.
Oh, I wanted you to hear Peter Navaro, but all right.
I have some of that too. Just give me a...
good. Let's hear a little bit of it, because he really, the coin of his realm was smack talk. I mean, really, he was like a pro wrestler, you know. I don't know if this particular clip that Albert has is going to be that, but the point is, he really is, he's bad news, man. He's bad news.
The judge with this 4-month sentence said, "This is of your own making, pal. You did this."
Yeah, he defied the subpoena. Remember, this is a congressional subpoena related to J6 investigation. So he defied that and sort of proudly defied it. I mean, this is my point. He just was like peacocking about it. Go ahead, Albert.
The United States versus Peter Navaro has turned out to be a very important landmark constitutional case that is just going BS. To resolve important issues about the constitutional separation of powers, as well as the integrity, efficiency.
Yeah,
of
whatever other words I can kind of. Yeah, sure, whatever. He's that's just him with utter BS, right? Throwing integrity, efficiency, separation of powers, blah, blah. Dude, you defy. It's pretty open and shut. But then to have him go on all the news outlets he went on to defy it. After he defied it, as I say, to sort of brag about it. He was very proud of his move. I just thought,
Here's what the judge said. Her name is Amit Mehta. She said, "I guess what bothers me ultimately is that here we are after 1.5 years plus, and you still want to suggest to me that this is a political prosecution. You want me to believe this is a political prosecution when the evidence is completely to the contrary." She said, "You are not a victim. You are not the object of a political prosecution." She said, "These are the circumstances of your own making." And with that, 4 months and $9,500 fine for him as well.
Yeah, I don't think the fine really matters too much, but that's a nice little run. So really good. They all want to go to SCOTUS, says Dillette. Yeah, SCOTUS is where they feel sort of mobbed up. SCOTUS, I don't believe, Harry, in answer to your question, can sentence him to a longer term. We can ask David to be sure about that, but I'm fairly confident. They just can uphold the lower court decision, which is exactly, I think, what they will do.
Yeah, he's already appealing. Mm-hmm.
Deirdre says, "I love how people troll him." It is wild how when he comes out of court, the people with the lie signs we just showed,
Yeah.
Yeah. Shameless insanity on full broadcast. Exactly. Anyway. Yeah, Landmark, I don't know. He's making. Anyway, that's the story on Peter Navaro. It's the breaking news in the moment, so he will appeal. And the other guy who got a sentence was who? Anybody remember? Steve Bannon. Why isn't Steve Bannon in prison, you may ask? Because he's appealing that decision. So he is granted, on appeal, freedom. So he doesn't have to go to prison until the appeal is heard, and then. So all these guys are playing the long con, which is, let's get our guy back. I'll be pardoned, just like I was the last time. Bannon has already been pardoned once, as you know. That was for the scam involving donations to the Build the Wall campaign, and he's hoping for a second pardon. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
That's the latest on Peter Navaro. Now, Commish, if you could please take your place at midfield. The fantasy football cheating scandal is now reaching a feverish pitch with a firing, Commish. I'm going to bring Commissioner Albert onto the floor for a moment. This is from ESPN. An employee for a fantasy football site has been fired for being involved in a cheating scandal, Commish. This is during a prestigious tournament with a 6-figure first prize, which is the time to cheat. At least if you're going to cheat, make it for a lot of money, potentially.
It does put a bigger microscope on unfortunately, on the cheating, because people are more paying attention because they're trying to get that $150,000.
Exactly. The NFL championship, the National Fantasy Football Championship, acknowledged Wednesday, this has just happened yesterday, that an employee used internal controls to make advantageous changes to a contestant's roster after the games had kicked off. Wow. I mean...
Ooh, it's a wild idea, but it just might work.
As a fantasy football commissioner, I always threaten to do that as well, but I never follow through.
No, it's the most joked about move that fantasy football commissioners make or joke about.
The other 13 league mates I have, anytime they give me a hard time, I always throw them with so let me just make a couple moves and I'll switch your opinion.
So everybody knows, but if for the handful of people who don't, fantasy football, you have players kind of like from all over the league, and you field a fantasy team, and then based on those players' performance, you get a certain number of points, and then you can go on, and it's a really big-time competitive thing. I mean, everybody knows it's a massive industry really now, and they have it in baseball, they have it in football, et cetera. So this is football, obviously. So, with a lot of money at stake, there is the possibility of cheating, and so if you go in after the game's played and then you manipulate choices, obviously you can win, right? If I know what already happened, then it's easy to manipulate the outcome.
Yeah, so for example, you might have a player get 100 yards and a touchdown, which is 16 points, and he's on your bench, and whoever you bench gets like 2 points. So, and your roster locks. So if they did switch those players, then it's a huge issue because the roster should be locked, and only one person can move things around. So,
yeah,
Albert, thank you.
Yep.
Well, Commish, this Hold'em contest, as it was called, featured a $150,000 first prize, attracted 1,521 entries. Among the contestants was a group of fantasy players featured on the, quote, Ship Chasing podcast. They spotted the issue, brought it to the attention of the tournament operators, and the tournament operators, they actually fired somebody over this, right?
I mean, there could be some legal issues since 1,500 people did join. So this is a little different than your standard fantasy league. It's like
I see.
Just kind of like everybody puts their money in the pot and try to win type of thing.
Right,
this,
which is typically the way it works.
Yeah.
Betting, cheating. Dillette is not necessarily surprised. We're doing everything we can to make sure that we know everything about what happened, to let people know and to make sure it never happens again, said the commissioner of that league. Nothing is more important than the integrity of a pay-to-play contest. We have built up 20-plus years of integrity through transparency in everything we've done. And by one action, it's put all of it in question. It's put me and everybody associated with our company in question, he said.
Why are you yelling?
So that's the situation. Fantasy football racked by scandal, Commish. And will this affect your play, Commish? Are you going to think twice before you play fantasy football again?
No. I'm in like 5 different leagues, and
yeah, the Commish.
I'm in the red this year. I didn't make any money, so.
Oh, wow. Yeah, well, I mean, it's very hard to win. I thought that was the scandal, that they made it almost impossible to win. But anyway, that's the latest on
the Mark Thompson Show.
So as we look at what will likely be the big issue, and I'll get to Trump and I'll get to New Hampshire and I will get to realities about New Hampshire in a moment. I know there are a lot of people who come to this show and they're politically minded and politically astute. Astute is, it's a ding word. One of the issues that has become front and center and continues to be front and center for, I would think, the foreseeable future, and for all the reasons that we've detailed before, it's the border crisis, right? And the crisis at the border is a concern shared by both parties, right? And by all people. You have to manage immigration into this country. The bipartisan border deal that is right now supposedly being forged, and I'll remind everyone something that we've reminded you of before, there was a bipartisan border deal during the Obama administration. Lindsey Graham was actually a signatory to it. But what happened was it was derailed at the last minute for political reasons, because the border is such a great political element to exploit, right? You can say, hey, they're not doing anything about the border. Look at this, bad, because it's always essentially an ongoing crisis. So there was that deal, and it was, as I say, it was derailed. Now, Mitch McConnell is saying, and this is in private meetings, that Trump, who, as you are aware, has said also privately, but it's come out, he doesn't want a border deal. He doesn't want a deal on the economy. He doesn't want the government open. He wants as many crises as possible to affect the Biden administration for political reasons so that he is able to reassert his political dominance and achieve the presidency once again. So, I mean, he's essentially said it in so many words. The emerging bipartisan border deal is hitting fresh snags among Republicans on Capitol Hill because of the opposition from former President Donald Trump, who is closing in on his party's presidential nomination at a critical time for this bipartisan agreement that they're working on. Mitch McConnell of Kentucky, senator, minority leader, told Republicans privately yesterday that the politics of the issue has been complicated by Mr. Trump's rise and his hostility to the agreement, putting the party, quote, in a quandary. Quandary is a ding word. This, according to those who participated in the meeting and described his comments on the condition of anonymity, and anonymity is a ding word. The remarks reported earlier were striking, coming from a Republican who has toiled to distance himself and his party from the former President Trump. McConnell has vociferously backed the proposed border compromise and has been a chief proponent of a stalled effort to send tens of billions of dollars in military aid to Ukraine. So there are two things going on here: the border crisis and military aid to Ukraine. And Republicans are saying we need to tie the Ukraine money to the border deal.
Vociferously, ding.
Vociferously is a ding word. So McConnell's abrupt change in tone, they note, reflected the increasingly difficult challenge facing Senate negotiators as they race to finalize immigration legislation that Trump is already actively campaigning against. He's the leader of their party, in effect. The outlaw that is Trump doesn't want to see anything really substantively happen in a positive way because, as I've mentioned, the more crises that are ongoing, the better for him politically. Mr. Trump has encouraged Republicans to reject any border deal, and this is fueling the opposition of Republican lawmakers who are saying that the bipartisan proposal for the border, which includes measures to increase deportations and make it more difficult to claim asylum, doesn't go far enough. His opposition has made it difficult to secure the support of majority of Senate Republicans. His opposition, meaning McConnell's opposition on this issue, for an eventual deal. So McConnell is again in closed-door meetings at the Capitol saying that the war in Ukraine, the border deal, we need to get some kind of legislation forged on this, and we need to fund this war in Ukraine. I'm literally not getting any kind of acceptable response other than, oh, this is great. You know, we're getting things we never thought we could get, said Ron Johnson. He's the guy from Wisconsin. He's a, you know, he's got his, Ron Johnson is utterly Well, I think he's an extremist.
Girl, you just woo.
Yeah, girl, you just do it.
Girl, you just woo.
In any case, I mention this because the chance of anything really being done and any deal being forged that's at all bipartisan and addresses the issues at the border, even funding in Ukraine, that just seems to be a fading goal. You do have some GOP support. Not everybody is in lockstep on this, but the support is really blocked by enough Republicans who answer to Donald Trump that they're really unable to do anything. So that's the word on that. That's the word on a bipartisan border deal. And that's the word really on Donald Trump's power and continued power.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Hey, Albert, what did I send you? I sent you a couple of pieces of video related to, now I forget what they are. It's been one of those. Did I send you, Commish? I think I sent you the Nikki Haley thing and the Fox News analyst saying, this is what I really wanted to get across today. The Fox News analyst looking at the New Hampshire returns for Trump, and even as Trump takes his victory lap in New Hampshire, pointing out that the pushback from New Hampshire voters based on exit polling and even based on results suggests that Trump has essentially lost independence, and there is such a negative with Donald Trump that he will have a very, very tough ride getting to the presidency and winning the general, even against Joe Biden. And I say even against Joe Biden because, let's face it, Joe Biden also doesn't have great numbers. You have that piece of video, please, sir?
I do. Here.
Okay, here we go. Let's.
Albert, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Coming out from the voters, which is very clear. We need
the audio does seem a little low.
Nominee, which is going to be Donald Trump, and we need to make sure we beat Joe Biden.
All right, that was RNC Chair Ronna McDaniel urging all Republicans to.
Okay, Albert, there's something. I'm hearing some echo. Stop for a second, please. I don't know why I can't.
You know, they do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for.
I don't know why I can't.
For George W.
There you go. Thank you.
Mark
This
Thiessen,
is
Washington Post columnist too. Mark, your
perfect
takeaway from what looks to be a 12-point victory for the president.
Solid win for President Trump, but also signal of general election weakness. As he pointed out last night, he's the only president to have won New Hampshire primary 3 times. The last time he won it against Bill Weld in 2020, 86-9. And he didn't win by that kind of margin last night.
Well, this is. Don't you think Nikki Haley's much more formidable than
formidable than Bill Weld? But the point being is that he's effectively the quasi-Republican incumbent. He never ceded the leadership of the Republican Party. He's offended that anyone challenged him for the Republican nomination. He thinks he should be the nominee. The last time you had a challenge like this to a Republican incumbent was in 1992 when Pat Buchanan challenged George H.W. Bush. He got 38% to Bush's 52%. The New York Times headline: Bush jarred in first primary. President Bush scored a less than impressive victory over Pat Buchanan. Haley did much better than Buchanan ever did. Why is this not jarring? You just showed the stats. 35% of Republicans in this state are not going to vote for Donald Trump. He's bleeding centrist. He needs those Haley voters. And right now, a lot of the Republican Party and independents are saying they're not going to vote for him. So it's a warning sign.
I can see what you're saying about you got to win over moderates, you got to win over independents to win the general, especially in all the battleground states. But I think to say the president's an incumbent, he's not on Air Force One. He's not using the machinery of the White House.
He's got a nicer plane.
And probably.
You've been on it.
Yeah. But they don't have a situation room on it. But he does not have all that. So, I mean, we have not seen, in so many ways, it's unprecedented.
It is unprecedented. I mean, the last guy who did it was Grover Cleveland, who lost the White House and then ran 4 years later and won it back. But, look, he needs to win. How did Ronald Reagan beat Jimmy Carter? He beat him by winning the Reagan Democrats, who became Republicans over time. Right now, the Republican Party, to beat Joe Biden, the Republicans need the Haley Democrats. And if Trump can't win them over, he's not going to win the presidency.
I do also think you're shortchanging Nikki Haley's quality of her candidacy.
Oh, no, I'm not at all.
I think she's a lot, as much as I love Pat Buchanan, he was way out to the right.
Yeah.
I think she is more of a traditional conservative.
Yeah.
I want you to hear.
But that comment misses the point. His rejoinder there, his remarks. Who's the guy on the right? The Fox News guy. Anyway, his We've had him on the show before. And I can't think of his name. Anyway, that misses the point. What he's saying is something very important, and this is really huge, and it speaks to the power of that bully that is Trump. He's bullied everybody into this bizarre notion that A, the election was stolen, B, you need to back me, and I'll get to the threat he made in a moment, the new threat he made about funding. But it misses the point that even with those huge negatives, Trump is maintaining GOP support, and this GOP analyst is saying he's viewed as the incumbent because people already know his track record, what he's going to do. So you can't evaluate him in the same way you did in 2016, and even in the same way as 2020. So the Nikki Haley thing is important only because you have that group of independent voters who, many of whom went for Haley. In New Hampshire, she got a lot of independent votes. Those independents are critical to the outcome of the next election. And so when you poll those independents and they say, under no circumstances would I vote for Donald Trump, that's massive information and massively damaging information and data that can be applied to Trump's possibility of actually winning the presidency. So I thought that was pretty huge that this Fox News conservative analyst is coming on and saying, hey, I get it. Trump won New Hampshire, rah, rah. But if you actually look at the tea leaves, they tell you he doesn't have support beyond the diehards. And even against a Joe Biden, who is troubled in his presidency for reasons that may have to do less with policy and more with circumstance and age, et cetera, that is big information. And Trump, likely not gain over the independents and even those GOP voters that he needs to win. Very, very big, I thought. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
The only other thing I want to mention, because I promised you to just relate to you the threat. Today, Donald Trump is saying any support of Nikki Haley from any GOP or it's really about money, anyone who funds or donates to Nikki Haley is thrown out of MAGA world. What were his what does he say, Kim? Tell me
I think you got the gist of it. If you're found to have donated money to Nikki Haley's campaign, you're banned. He said, we will ban you from MAGA. That's it. You're out.
That's banned from MAGA world. It's like getting tossed out of Disneyland. You can't come back for life.
Kim, how are you?
Yeah.
So what do? They scan.
Good day, sir.
A lot of people or corporations or whatever will donate to more than one candidate.
Sure.
They cover all their bases, right?
Right.
So, I mean, I guess, what do you give the money back and say, I'm sorry, you've donated to Nikki Haley. We don't want your money and we don't want you either.
Well, he's not one to turn down money, but I don't know. Yeah. I think the reality is he's just asserting himself and bullying some more. Hey, look, his bullying worked. We talk to kids about bullying and how he's a bully and sticks and stones break my bones, words never hurt me. That's wrong. I mean, I understand why we tell kids that, but we all know the reality. Bullying is powerful, and there has not been a political bully along the lines of Donald Trump in modern history, with command of social media the way he has it. He's also charismatic. I've said that before. I'm sorry. People who are, slow to realize that, I think, are slow to accept something that's really important. He is a charismatic figure. And your MAGA membership will be revoked. Exactly.
Yeah. Here's exactly what he said. From this moment forth,
By the way, he wrote this. He didn't say it.
On his social media, whatnot.
Yeah.
From this moment forth, you will be permanently barred from the MAGA camp. That's how he put it.
That's
good day, sir.
Well, I don't know. I mean,
there's never been anything like this.
Yeah, all of your MAGA privileges will be taken away. You can't dine in the private dining room any longer.
No more access to the secret documents. That's it for you.
Yeah, and forget it. That's right. The discounted liquor, forget it. You're paying full price now. So that's the latest from Trump, Haley. The other news about Trump, I'll just quickly mention it as we call it in the business, a tease. This is a tease. Donald Trump is taking the witness stand in the E. Jean Carroll defamation case. You understand, he's already been found guilty of the assault involving SEX.
In a civil trial. Mm-hmm.
In the civil, right. And now this is about defamation. He defamed her once. And now this is about the second defamation. And I will ask David Katz, who will be here probably in about 20 minutes, about this and Trump taking the stand. But he's just taking the stand now in that trial. So there is that. Yeah, we're going to do a whole, thank you, Winthrop. Mark and Kim, what do you all know about Project 2025? We talk about 2025 from time to time. I'd like to do a whole chunk on 2025 in the next week or two. I mean, it's essentially the plan that the GOP has. And when I say the GOP, I don't mean but you know what I'm saying. Those who will be in control should Trump reascend to power, to dismantle the government, to dismantle the, quote, administrative state, to dismantle the regulatory agencies, banking regulations, consumer regulations, EPA regulations, environmental regulations. It's all going to be, there'll be there. The 2025 details the discharge, firing essentially of tons of federal employees. So we will get to that. I'm going to do a whole, yeah, it's a scheme. Shadow producer Calvin Wong is right. The plan, plot, scheme. So yeah, we will do, and we'll release it as a separate video as well. But I want to do it as a separate chunk when we can really get into it. So that plan is in the works. Kim's news. I have David Katz on deck. Also, it's the Planet Stupid Word of the Environment on Thursday. Smash the like button if you would.
With your iron rod.
And share this show across social media. It really helps us expand our footprint. It matters how many subscribers we have. We're closing in on 20,000, which is amazing. I'm just so proud of the work that Kim has done, Albert's done, Tony's done. We show up and we try to give you the best show we can. We really worry about it. We worry about every little thing. Kim will tell you, I drive her nuts with how much I worry about this. But
at least you know that you drive me nuts, which is totally good. That's good.
It's a project, you know. It's funny. Yeah. One of the reasons we came over, and then I'll go to Kim's news. This will take real quick, 30 seconds. When they pulled the plug on our radio station, which is where we've come from, right? KGO Radio in San Francisco, dominant talk radio station. I've been on the air for, 3.5 years, something like that. And I'd worked hard to build an audience. I'd worked hard to build franchises. Mm-hmm. You know, That's Rich, Law and Disorder, Televangelist Theater, It's the Planet Stupid. These are all things I worked hard to build these things, you know what I mean? I had to create them, build them, try to build momentum, to build chemistry with the other people on our show. And then when the station just goes away, that's a project for me that was just, it's like somebody taking the chessboard and just scattering all the pieces everywhere. No. I'm in the middle of a chess game. I'm in the middle of trying to build something, trying to build support. And so we came over here, and to see that some of that support has come with us and that we're growing it and that the show is evolving in many different ways, it really is great. So thank you for sharing it. Thank you for your contributions, of course. All of you people, Patreon and PayPal, you've kept us on the air. Oh, that was longer than 30 seconds. Sorry about that. All right, Kim's news, and then, as I say, a big show ahead. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister, and this report sponsored by, Tenuta Vineyards in Livermore. Tenuta Vineyards, we love it. We'll tell you how you can get your 10% discount in just a moment. But first, here he is. I've been calling him Voldemort lately, he who shall not be named. Just 2 days after celebrating a victory in the New Hampshire primary, Voldemort is back in a New York courtroom. A 9-member jury will decide how much money, if any, writer E. Jean Carroll will get for Trump defaming her when he called her allegation of sexual abuse back in the 90s a lie and a hoax designed to sell books. He was found liable for sexual abuse and for defamation last year and forced to pay Carroll $5 million. She is now seeking $10 million. And what we know is that Trump has taken the stand, briefly testifying in his own defense today at the civil defamation trial. What he said is that he did not intend to harm E. Jean Carroll. He also stood by his previous denial of sexual assault. The defense has rested after the brief testimony, and the judge has dismissed the jurors, instructing them come back Friday morning to hear closing arguments, and that they will likely begin deliberating the case by lunchtime tomorrow. So that's what we have live from the Mark Thompson newsroom.
Very good. Breaking news.
There you have it. The nation's first case of nitrogen hypoxia execution is set for today in Alabama.
This, by the way, I don't mean to interrupt, and then I'll let you speak, is something that we'll discuss with David Katz, because this is a legal there's a legal element to this because it was appealed, et cetera, as Kim will tell you. And so we'll talk to David Katz, the former federal prosecutor, about that in just a moment. Go ahead, Kim. Sorry.
This man's name is Kenneth Eugene Smith. He had been sentenced to death for a 1988 murder, and he lived through they say is a botched 2022 execution attempt. Basically, they couldn't find a vein for the lethal injection. An attorney for Smith asked the U.S. Supreme Court to block this execution on the grounds of cruel and unusual punishment, but yesterday the court declined to stop the execution. So today it moves forward. And again, as Mark has mentioned, we'll talk with former federal prosecutor David Katz about this in merely moments. The Department of Veterans Affairs is facing a lawsuit from transgender veterans. Yeah, the lawsuit is trying to get gender-affirming surgery to be included in veteran health benefits instead of requiring transgender veterans to use private health insurance or pay for it out of pocket. VA benefits do cover other transition-related care, including hormone therapy, voice training, fertility preservation, and hair removal as well. So we'll see how that works out. The FAA says an airplane door flying open in flight is an incident that must never happen again. You think? The agency just completed its safety review and said Boeing can once again now fly its 737 MAX 9 planes. Alaska Airlines, which had a door plug come loose and prompted the halt of 737 MAX 9s in the skies, announced that it will fly some of its fleet this week. You feel comfortable hopping aboard there? I don't know. Not sure. Yeah. Let's talk about the population, because it looks like some of California's major cities could have more people at the turn of the century compared to others. A new study from the University of Illinois, Chicago, finds more than half of all cities in the U.S. could see drops in population by 2100. Some of the largest cities in California, like San Francisco, Los Angeles, San Diego, and San Jose, and Fresno, are projected to see growth. Researchers discovering cities that currently have higher incomes, less car owners or fewer car owners, and a high population density are likely to attract more people. Other findings show all states are expected to experience some level of depopulation except for Washington, D.C. and Hawaii. The Northeast and Midwest face the largest losses, while the West and the South will see the biggest jumps. I don't know how they know these things. Well, here's an interesting story for you, but let me tell you, there is a house, well, more of like a mansion in Beverly Hills, in Beverly Crest, that squatters have taken over, and they are using it as a big old party house. Yeah.
Oh, this is the worst.
This is an unoccupied...
These are squatters?
Yeah. It's an unoccupied Beverly Crest mansion. It was owned by this guy who was accused of killing his girlfriend, and he made a run for it.
What?
But now squatters are turning it into a party house. They host rowdy nightly gatherings. They even charge people $75 to come. In some cases, they were renting out rooms inside, charging $300.
Oh my God!
There's never been anything like this.
Yeah. Authorities have failed to shut down these parties.
Oh my God, the neighbors.
Nobody has ever put something like this together that I've ever seen.
It is pretty out there.
The squatters say, wait a minute, we're legitimate tenants here.
What?
Like, there's no one else saying otherwise because the guy that owned the house fled. And so, yeah, this is a party house.
Legitimate tenant.
I've never seen anything like it before.
I think it is pretty much in the never.
Have you ever seen anything like this?
No, exactly. We have not. In our history,
There is nothing
in our history that quite compares to
this.
Nearby residents say this is horrible. But they are keeping us up all night. It's loud. There are drunk people all over the place.
This is the worst. Yeah, this is the worst.
The neighborhood is home to several high-profile celebrities: LeBron James, John Legend, Seth MacFarlane, Jeff Bezos, Steve Wynn, and Ron Burkle all live within a half-mile of the home. I don't know who Ron Burkle is.
God.
You know who Ron Burkle is? I don't know.
Yeah, Ron Burkle is... what did he do, Albert? That Ron Burkle is...
you don't know who he is, but he's apparently a big deal.
No, he's a...
you know who I am?
He's a big business guy. He was... I don't know. I feel like he was in the food business or something. Maybe I'm wrong. Food or supplements or something. Am I wrong?
Well,
he's a co-founder and managing partner of the Ukaipa companies.
Oh,
the Ukaipa companies.
Of course.
I'm not sure what's under that.
He lives nearby. My point is.
No, I must know what Ron Burkle before I move on. I think he's got something to do with food or supplements or something. Am I wrong? I want to know, Albert, before I go on, what Ron Burkle is responsible.
Why are you yelling?
How did he get to be a jillionaire?
For crying out loud.
He's part owner of the Pittsburgh Penguins. What?
Penguins, yeah.
What?
But how did he get the money to buy the Pittsburgh Penguins is my question. Where was his... I think it was in food or whatever. Here it is.
Hypa Companies is a
Why
private
can't I get help
firm.
from people on this show?
It's hard to find good help these days. His company is an investment firm that specializes in U.S. companies in the distribution.
I was fortunate. Everyone I worked with made me better at
they're
my
not
job.
making me better, Brian. I'm having to do all the work on this show.
Food, retail, customer, hospitality.
Is food? Here it is.
Sports.
Golden State Foods, Dominic's, Fred Meyer, Ralph's, Food for Less. Yes, it was food. I will take my prize off the air. Thank you very much.
Right. You just, well, Burkle and others say the party started in October. They typically start at about 2 a.m. And we're talking, it's not like a sprinkling of people.
They start at 2 a.m? Oh,
yes.
My God.
Hundreds of people. Hundreds. This is a 5,875 square foot mansion in the Beverly Crest neighborhood. Lots of shouting, laughing, drunkenness. They have parties that go from 2 a.m. to 9 a.m., even 10 a.m. the next day. I mean,
that's your kind. Is that your kind of party, Albert?
Albert, thank you.
That's when I get going. 2 a.m. The party's left behind a ton of trash and debris along neighborhood streets.
Of course.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
Nitrous oxide canisters inhaled by partygoers from balloons to get high.
Oh my God!
Plastic cups, pools of vomit. Prophylactic packages, all kinds of things. Neighbors say
there's never been anything like this.
Often called out to the homes for arrest for assault, fires, and more. Vehicles from visitors completely block surrounding streets. They say they're trespassing in this neighborhood. They've been bringing people who come up drunk at 2 a.m. and they show up by the hundreds, and the street is full of cars. This is wild.
Wow.
The man that last owned this mansion, which is kind of, it's weird. If you see it's like abutting against the wall of a different mansion, it's kind of a strangely situated place. But his name was Dr. Munir Uwada, and he fled the U.S. in 2013. Dr.
Munir Uwada, why do I know him, Albert? What has he been famous for?
He was being investigated for his girlfriend's murder.
Oh,
and
my
so the
God.
Home was
he fled. Wow.
He fled. And the home was repossessed by his mortgage lender. It's now on the market for $4.5 million. But the real estate agent keeps calling and saying, do you really want me to sell this place? Because it looks like people are living here. It looks like there's always someone here.
Sure. How do they sell it when the place is getting trashed like that? Maybe. And in answer to something that was on the chat, this is just fascinating. The electricity and water remain on because the place is still, it's on the market. You can't turn it off. Oh my!
Real estate guy says, I'm selling this house, and the pool guy calls me and he says, people are moving in. Do you still need me? Like, people are moving into this place. This isn't. So I guess
my gosh. This is
Someone did this to spoil our Christmas.
The squatters have changed the front locks and the gate code.
God!
They're living
This
here.
is like crazy.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Wow.
They've got a fake lease. They said, no, you don't have a lease. I'm the broker. But because they've lived in this property, the court won't cut off utilities because they say squatters have rights.
Oh my God. That is such a...
Oh my God.
Oh.
I'm not even
What
kidding.
the hell is going on in the United States of America?
Thank you, Ron.
I could go on and on. There's so much more to the story, but suffice it to say, the parties continue. It is a rockin' good time at the Beverly Crest Mansion. Woo! Yeah.
Why are you yelling?
I'm yelling because the party's just getting started. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I think
that is incredible. They literally, and so this is an insane situation. Squatters have rights. Are you kidding me?
You just don't get it.
I don't get it. No, you're right. I don't get it. That's an utter insanity.
Right. Yes, it is.
Oh.
After that, I could use some wine. And that's why I'm here to tell you that Tenuta Vineyards in Livermore is the best place for the Mark Thompson Why Are You Yelling Red? The only place for the Mark Thompson Why Are You Yelling Red?
Yeah, that's true.
Why
it's the best place because it's the only place for it. It is our proprietary blend, though. It is a terrific red that we blended when we were out there. We made sure you really will like it. But it's not. They have tons of varietals there. So you don't have to get the Why Are You Yelling Red?
Trust me, you want it. On the back of the bottle, I'm reading it right now. It says the first thing it says is share the passion. So that's what I'm doing with you right now. I'm sharing the Mark Thompson Why Are You Yelling Red passion.
Wow.
It's some good wine. You can also go out to the winery. Look at the flight of wines as you look out over the beautiful vineyards in Livermore Valley. Tenuta Vineyards, if you want your 10% off, you can also, buy over the phone, check out the website, look at all the varietals they've got, and then call Rich and say, smash it with your iron rod.
Wow. Very well done.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Yeah.
And you call him at 925-699-4576. Say, smash it with your iron rod, get your 10% discount, and then your wine will arrive on your porch and all will be right with the world.
Wow.
Yeah.
As long as your porch isn't that house in Beverly Crest that we were reporting on.
Yeah, not this porch, your porch. No. I'm Kim McAllister. This is The Mark Thompson Show.
They had to close down an entire radio station to silence him. And now he's here. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Thompson. The Mark Thompson Show.
It's unbelievably offensive.
Who's Mark Thompson?
That's a good word. Come on, ding me.
Their envy wonton killing. I don't know what a wonton killing is. I'm gonna have to look that one up.
Calling me a liar? Is that what you're calling me? You, sir, are a liar.
Why are you yelling?
Yeah, baby. Yeah. We are on. We are way on. It is so great to have you all with us. If you haven't subscribed, if you're new, if we just showed up in your feed somehow, I hope you'll, we know you have many choices in air travel. I hope you'll include us in your future plans. Please subscribe And do they serve Why Are You Yelling Red at the Mayhem Mansion?
Why are you yelling?
Luis asks in the super chat. Yeah. The Mayhem Mansion. I kind of like that, though. Mm-hmm. I like a party at the Mayhem Mansion. You know, decadence rules the day. I want to say hey to a few people who have supported us on this day through the super sticker, super chat method. You can always support us that way while the show's on the air, even after hours. Super sticker, super chats, and super thanks. You'll see them there. You can even do it on a short we do, any video we do. And Wes Theory, what up, Wes?
Big shout out.
Big shout out to Wes. Thank you for a 5 spot. And thank you to Maud Day. She's a regular. And so appreciate $25 for door bolts.
Big shout out.
Wow, that's really cool. Thank you so much, Maud.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
We need to check our door bolts for sure.
We do.
Yeah.
We need bigger bolts. Daryl Leffler. Come on, Daryl. The musical, I always wonder what Daryl is about because of the musical icon. But I know he's about supporting the show. Thank you for the 20.
Big shout out.
Big shout out. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
To all of you, Daryl and all of you. Susan W., are you kidding me?
Big shout out.
A big shout out. Love listening to you every single day, she says, in the super chat. And she is contributing $50.
That's nice.
I'm not going to cry.
I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry.
I'm not going to.
I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry.
I said this year I wouldn't.
I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry.
You know how I'm an emotional person, Kim. But I really try to choke back the tears.
I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry.
Susan, thank you.
Big
shout out to you, Susan W. You are so lovely, and I appreciate very much the support. And Kelly Malloy, what up, Kelly?
Big shout out
with a 10 spot. Wow. Kelly's a regular, too. This is really terrific. Andrew Peters, I'd love you to squat here at the Thompson estate. We would have some, based on your chat, I think we'd have some very heated arguments. Now, I don't think, when I say heated, I'm not a screamer, you know, which is probably something that you're not aware of.
Why are you yelling?
Oh, yeah. Wait a minute. Well, I make points passionately. But
do you think Andrew Peters would know anything about Ron Burkle?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I think Albert is in first position to take over at the Thompson estate. So fun to listen and watch, says Amber Anderson. Big shout out,
Big
Amber.
shout out.
$20. Thank you, Amber Anderson. Thank you so
Really
much,
nice.
Amber.
Thank you so much.
I like that name, Amber Anderson. Sounds so civilized. Love you, Amber. Thank you. Hey, Albert, do I have time for a Stories from the Sky before I get to David Katz?
Yeah, we could just try to squeeze in maybe just the Boeing story. If we could get to the others, their other stories are great too. But if we could fit those in, we can.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see Katz yet in the green room, so
we may have like 10-ish minutes. He's usually around 12:05. So
Yeah. We are on the West Coast time period,
West
everybody.
Coast.
The Pacific Coast. That's right. Albert, we haven't talked to you since the Niners. Have we, or did we? Was that yesterday? You were here. We talked about the Niners.
We have not. No, I'm very nervous. Yeah.
You are nervous.
Yeah, the defense. Usually the defense is what I'm nervous about, and we can't.
I'll
We
tell you
couldn't
what,
stop the run. We need to stop the run.
Now Debo will play, correct, Kamish?
I hope. He's been talking a lot of trash to a Lions player throughout the season, and they've been waiting to play each other. So this is their opportunity to work things out and also move on to the Super Bowl.
Well, the Lions, quite the Cinderella story in a sense, right? And they are huge underdogs. I do think, last thing on that, then I want to do Stories from the Sky. I do think that, and you can tell me if I'm wrong about this, Kamish, but I believe that you can, and Goff doesn't, here's the good news for if you're a Niners fan. Goff doesn't, I think, have a great track record against the Niners. The bad news is I do think you can throw on our secondary a bit. Am I right about that, Kamish?
You're right about that, and you're right about running to one side. They usually avoid the Bosa side, so you can throw on our, obviously, and Jared Goff can throw the ball really well, not very accurate at sometimes, but you saw last week, just run deep and throw it deep, and you'll get a 50-yard pass interference.
Penalty, exactly.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
the league wants those long passes. And that's the other thing I would say that might favor the Niners is that they're a dome team, right? He's used to playing in a dome, and so is the whole team, just on the passing game and evaluating it. But that's balanced against the fact that it will be dry, and it should be a fast track, right, Kamish?
Yeah, and that'll probably help our quarterback too, Brock Purdy, who was with a glove on and off in the beginning, was very inaccurate, and got his life together in the fourth quarter. So.
Yeah, it's true. I think the rain really bothered Purdy. So they are not. They're a great team that made it to the playoffs. Any team is a threat. Yeah, no, obviously they're a threat. That's what we're talking about.
12-5, an easy playoff route, That's what they've had, so we'll see.
John Watson says Purdy is untested against the Lions, so any given Sunday. Oh, absolutely. They're capable of winning. I completely agree with that.
And their coach, Dan Campbell, does a great job just rallying the troops. He's like probably the best raw guy in the NFL that's still around, like the Mike Tomlins of the world, those types of coaches who just motivate. So they're going to be ready, and hopefully the Niners will be just equally as ready, because I have the February 11th circled on my calendar. It's an Usher concert and a Super Bowl. So
that is Super Bowl, February 11th, exactly. All right, without any further delay, let's give you a little bit. This is Stories from the Sky.
We have clearance, Clarence.
Roger. What's our vector, Victor?
Enough is enough! I have had it with these monkey-fighting snakes on this Monday to Friday plane! Everybody strap in!
A Boeing Alaska 737 MAX accident where the door plug was blasted out. There is a whistleblower report that says that the plug was, again, they say plug, it's that door, right? Was taken off and then reinstalled improperly during final assembly at the factory. An anonymous whistleblower has alleged that Boeing is at fault for the near disaster on board an Alaska Airlines jet, saying that the fuselage, which is a ding word, the fuselage panel that blew off was removed for repair, then reinstalled improperly at the Washington factory. The whistleblower, who appears to have knowledge of Boeing's manufacturing records, detailed how they believe the door plug, again the door, came to be removed and misinstalled. They identify themselves as a current Boeing employee and say that the 4 bolts that would have prevented the Alaska Airlines Boeing 737 MAX 9 jet from losing the door at 16,000 feet were reinstalled improperly at the Boeing factory in Washington. If true, that would make Boeing primarily responsible for the accident, rather than the supplier, Spirit Aerosystems. That's a supplier we've talked about. They've had a lot of issues with quality control. They originally installed the panel on the jet. That was in Wichita, right? That's where that Spirit Aerosystems is. Quote, the reason the door blew off is stated in black and white in Boeing's own records. It's also very, very stupid and speaks volumes about the quality culture at certain portions of this business. That's a quote from the whistleblower. There are 4 bolts that prevent the mid-exit door plug from sliding off of the door stop fittings that take actual pressurization loads in flight, and these 4 bolts were not installed when Boeing delivered the airplane. Our own records reflect this. That is, Boeing records reflect this. According to the Seattle paper, which you, I think, look to on some of these issues involving Boeing because they report on Boeing regularly, when a cabin is pressurized, 6 stop fittings around the door press against corresponding stop pads. Don't you feel like you know more about these door plugs than you ever thought you'd ever know?
Yeah. And why only 4 bolts for the door? If especially if it's a door plug or if they have to fill this door panel area that they know is never going to be a door and just going to be a wall instead. Right. Why wouldn't they have put way more bolts in there just to make sure? I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's essentially being held on by pressure, I think. When a cabin is pressurized, 6 stop fittings around the door plug press against the corresponding stop pads. That's what holds it in place, as I say.
Okay.
They say the only way for the plug to have blown out is if it's moved, which can only happen if the stop fittings are not aligned with the stop pads, which is exactly what happens when it's open for maintenance. 4 key bolts that prevent upward movement during flight could not have been in place. Alaska Airlines CEO saying that his company did find some loose bolts on many Boeing 737 MAX 9s during inspections following the January 5th midair cabin panel blowout. On January 5th, of course, that was a newer plane. This Alaska Airlines Boeing 737 MAX 9 took off from Portland. It was bound for California, and it made this harrowing emergency landing because the door blew out at 16,000 feet. But now we learn from this whistleblower report that it is likely Boeing's fault and Boeing's responsibility. The whistleblower said the work of the mechanics on the Alaska jet should have been inspected, but was not because of a process failure and the use of 2 separate systems to record what work had been done. It's beyond scandalous. It may leave Boeing in a situation where they're legally liable, right? They had a 1-day quality stand-down pause at their Renton, Washington factory to evaluate ways to improve production and safety concerns. This was after the accident, of course. But internal communications to Boeing employees said, quote, the first of the stand-downs will be held for the 737 program. Production, delivery, and support efforts will pause for a day so that teammates can take part in working sessions focused on quality. They, in essence, set up a workshop with hands-on learning, reflection, and collaboration to identify where quality and compliance can be improved. This is again from the memo. But now, again, because of this whistleblower, it looks like the work is just shoddy. I mean, when you cut through it, you see how the fail-safe mechanisms, the mechanisms that are in place to make certain that things get done right and rechecked, they're not there. I always hate it when my door plug blows out, says John Watson. Yes, and there's that too. But
Slap
that's the
some
latest
tape on there, Mark. Just put a couple pieces of tape and you're good.
I mean, sadly, that may be what they've been getting away with. Meanwhile, the FAA has approved a path for the Boeing 737 MAX 9s to return to operation.
No applause for that. Do you really think they've had time to thoroughly check them all?
There's only one way to find out, Tim.
No.
Yeah, I'm with Kim.
No.
Oh, yeah. Boeing CEO David Calhoun yesterday saying the FAA finally approved a set of inspection criteria for the 171 grounded 737 MAX 9 planes that, if followed, could return the aircraft to service. But he learned yesterday that his company, Boeing, faces yet another investigation into its safety issues. This from the FAA, quote, the January 5th Boeing 737-9 MAX incident must never happen again. And the FAA said it would not grant any production expansion of the 737 MAX lineup while its safety probe of Boeing continues. But the FAA cleared the way for the planes to return to the air, especially Alaska and United. They've faced hundreds of cancellations a day because of the grounding, as you know. Quote, the exhaustive enhanced review our team completed after several weeks of information gathering gives me and the FAA confidence to proceed to the inspection and maintenance phase. That's the FAA Administrator, Mike Whitaker. So each of the 171 grounded aircraft must be inspected, including the bolts, fittings, and guide tracks for the door plug. the piece of fuselage that flew off, right? The process also includes tightening fasteners and performing detailed inspections of dozens of associated components. I thought that was done on a routine basis, but apparently not. In a statement Wednesday, Boeing said, quote, "It will continue to cooperate fully and transparently with the FAA and follow their direction." As you know, I feel, and in the lawsuits around the MAX crashes, it was revealed essentially total regulatory capture, that Boeing really owns the FAA. They were told to self-police with those MAX aircrafts and the software system that led to the crashes in Africa. "We will return each MAX 9 aircraft to service once this thorough inspection process is complete," said the Executive Vice President and Chief Operations Officer at United. "We are preparing aircraft to return to scheduled service beginning this Sunday." Wow. That's Stories from the Sky for today.
This has been Stories from the Sky. The captain has turned off the seatbelt sign, and you are now free to move about the cabin.
I left out one of my favorite stories, though, didn't I, Albert?
Yeah, I think we might have some time to fit it in.
Albert, I believe the bylaws of the show require you, since I have another Stories from the Sky story, to run the open again. And I'm sorry, it's weird, but it is required. When we set the show up, we have the bylaws, and they are quite specific about this.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, apologies to everyone who's seen the first Stories from the Sky. This is a turbo Stories in the Sky.
I move that we suspend the rules.
Well, the bylaws don't.
We have clearance, Clarence. Roger, Roger. What's our vector, Victor?
Enough is enough! I have had it with these monkey-fighting snakes on this Monday to Friday plane! Everybody strap in!
I mean, how can Kim just move for things? I mean, this isn't a city council meeting. There's nothing in the bylaws about moving for something.
You said there were bylaws.
Your Honor,
I'm allowed
I call for a recess, Your Honor. How dare you, Kim? All right.
Your Honor, I'd like to ask for a recess.
A gassy passenger causes American Airlines to turn a flight around.
What? That is crazy. What did he eat?
An American Airlines passenger reportedly passing gas and loudly bragging about it on a recent flight from Phoenix to Austin.
Did you really just do that?
A fellow flyer documented the smelly incident on a subreddit post. The plane was forced to return to the gate, and the passenger was removed.
Good day, sir.
The incident documented by this Reddit user.
Sayonara, sucker.
"I was seated near the row where the situation occurred," he wrote in Reddit. "While the airplane was still at the gate, saw and heard audibly disgruntled, maybe hung-over man. He said, 'You thought that was rude. Well, how about this?' And he proceeded to loudly pass gas."
Oh. I mean, how bad does your flatulence have to be for the plane to turn around?
But the transgression didn't end there. Transgression is a dang word. The man who just purposefully passed gas moments ago decides to loudly and condescendingly say, "Yeah, everybody, let's just eat the smelliest food possible all at the same time." Wow, this guy sounds like a total jerk. "If you don't like it, you can fly private," he said. "I think we all agree you're the rude one here," said one person back to him.
Yeah.
"That's just so low class," somebody said. They went back to the gate. A flight attendant came back, informed the passenger who was passing gas that he will not be staying on the flight. And he said, "I don't understand." And she tells him that they'll talk about it off the plane.
Get your farty butt off my plane.
He gets up, grabs his bag, quietly exits the plane. We all breathed a sigh of relief when he was removed. And the trip was only delayed 15 to 30 minutes. So well done.
Yeah.
And that, my friends, is Stories from the Sky.
This has been Stories from the Sky. The captain has turned off the seatbelt sign, and you are now free to move about the cabin.
I have a quick question for Kim. You did send a link to David so he knows how to get here.
Last night, and then a little reminder one just a few minutes ago.
All right, good. Well, we've done it, and I've sent him stories that I want to touch on, and certainly a lot of the news. We will get to David then right after Kim's news. Smash the like button like a boss. Smash it with your iron rod. Do it, damn it. Make it count.
We'll do it live.
Yeah.
I'll write it
Smash
and we'll do
it
it
live.
live.
Those of you watching in delay, smash it as well. O2 masks deployed. No, they did not, but that would have been...
That would have been great.
We don't need another door blowout due to the extra airflow. Yeah. Pretty wild. God. Here's David Katz.
Yay.
Jeez. David. My God. This is a courtroom. I would cite you for showing up to the trial late. How dare you? But I crave the information that David Katz has so much that I wouldn't dare. So, all right, how about it? So, Kim, we'll put your news on ice, and we'll talk to the great David Katz.
The Mark Thompson Show.
He's a former federal prosecutor, and his analysis is featured on London radio, on television from New York to Los Angeles to San Francisco. He's the great David Katz, everyone.
Great
Hello,
to
sir.
be with you guys. Traffic still doesn't get out of my way, so I'm terribly sorry. I was coming over one of our canyons in LA, and it was just impossible. And once you're there, there's no detour, right? It's just you sit there and you get there when you get there. So sorry about that. Sorry to your listeners, but let's do it. There's some interesting news today.
Can I start?
Trump just took the stand.
Right. Trump just took the stand. Now, what do you make of that?
Well, I don't think that it was very effective. He was on the stand for 4 minutes. The judge made clear to him, Mark, that he shouldn't go, give a campaign speech or, denigrate the court or the witness. So basically, all he said under questioning from his lawyers was, do you stand by what you said in your deposition? Of course, he was very ineffective in his deposition, but I felt they had to ask him that question. So he said, yes, I stand by my deposition. And then he said, did you intend to harm Miss E. Jean Carroll? And he said no. And then he was off within 4 minutes. I guess they figured there was really nothing to be gained in a lot of cross-examination of him, which, of course, E. Jean Carroll's side could have engaged in. But I think this is only about damages, Mark. And right. I think that they're on their way to a judgment this time. It was $5 million before. I think it'll be about $10 million this time. But it could be even more because, he's not getting the message. And that's what they're going to argue to the jury. He didn't get the message from a $5 million verdict, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. He went right out not right out, but, he did this as president. He defamed her and the damage is incalculable. The damage is forever to be defamed by the president the way that she was. She's
and then he did almost go right out after the last judgment. So I think I think you're right about that. I mean, he said this never happened. She's made this up. He kind of it reverted to the mean or whatever. He went back to his original story. David, I want to ask you about recovering. I have two questions. I'll get to the money in a second, recovering that money, getting that judgment. But before I do, I want to go to his testimony. When he says, or when anyone says, hey, it wasn't my intent to damage her reputation or whatever, which kind of, as you suggested, was what he said. Is that a defense?
Well, it certainly would be to damages, right? This trial is only about damages. And so how much money he ought to pay her, I mean, yes, I think the jury would take into account that while she was damaged a certain amount, he didn't really mean to intend it, because there's a punitive damages, Mark, element to this. And so certainly in considering punitive damages, you want to consider the mindset and the intent. But, it wasn't like he suddenly blurted this out, Mark. This was something he said as the president. He said it, I think, in the setting of having that great seal of the United States in front of him. He's got loads and loads of advisors. They apparently told him, you can go about this far. You could say, I deny her claims. He didn't go as far as the lawyers said, you can deny her claims. I mean, that's something, if you're a senator, if you're the president, somebody makes allegations against you, that's under the law, you can say, I deny their claims.
You can wait a minute, David, you can say that after the judgments come in that is against you, you can say that still?
This is people always have questions about this case because it's very complicated. First, he sexually assaults her. That's what happened in the Bergdorf Goodman's dressing room over there in New York City.
And the court ruled that happened. Yes.
The jury found that happened by the standard for a civil case. I think all the jurors were in agreement. I'm not sure if they have to be in New York civil cases, but they were either all in agreement or they were whatever percentage they had to be, so that this is a perfectly fine judgment against him. When she files that case against him, which is the sexual assault, that's when he defames her, because as president, he holds a press conference and he said, I had the right to defend myself. And it's true, under the law, Mark, he had a right to say, I deny her charges. He went on to insult her during that presidential press conference, say she wasn't my type, and do other things which took it out of that privilege that a president or senator or elected representative has to say to defend their reputation with their voters and in their office, to say, I deny these sexual assault, rape claims that have been made against me. So he litigated that issue, Mark, through the courts. And so that case wasn't ready to go to trial until it got litigated, whether what he'd done was in the scope of his presidential privilege to say, I deny the sexual assault and rape charges against me, or whether he went beyond that. The court said he went beyond that, and therefore he was liable to suit. So that suit went to the same judge that had the E. Jean Carroll sexual assault and rape charge, because it was a related case. That judge knew a lot about it. That's Judge Kaplan in the Southern District of New York. So this is the second trial. But this trial is only about damages, because the judge said that having proven that she'd been sexually assaulted, that the claim, I did not do it, she's lying, she's not even my type, she's making all this up, this is all a big hoax. Since that was beyond any privilege that he had, they're now going to try the damages on that second instance. On top of that, after the first trial with the sexual assault, he went on CNN, I think it was, or some major national outlet, and said, this is all a hoax, this is all a witch hunt, I didn't do this. That will be yet a third trial, whether that was defamation. And the argument right now for damages is going to be, let's look, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, at that whole course of conduct. This is an incorrigible person, Trump, who keeps blasting me, who keeps defaming me. And if you don't make a really painful amount of money, he's going to go right out after this case and defame me again. He hasn't gotten the message. Give him a message loud and clear. Give him punitive damages. And that's the one where if the jury feels that way, and there's good reason why they might feel that way, they could come back with a truly mind-blowing amount. They could come back with 20, 25 million. At some point, there is Supreme Court doctrine that the punitive damages can't be huge. You know, they can't be the dog, the case is the tail, and the whole dog is this, you know, 25, 50, pick a number, $100 million. If they came back with $100 million, probably the courts would throw that out as excessive. But I think they could come back not with the 10 or 12, but they could come back with 20 as punitive damages. And so to that extent, Trump feels that getting up there, trying to be as likable as he can be for 4 minutes, not ranting and raving in front of the jury this time, I think his lawyers have told him, look, it might be worth millions of dollars to you to make a 4-minute long good impression if that's what he ends up making with the jury. There's people who say it makes a terrible impression. But I would think on balance, being his lawyer, Mark, I probably would have trotted him in there for those 4 minutes. I think that he probably helped himself a little bit on the punitive damages with the jury.
Now about that money, how do you recover that money? How do you get that money from this judgment? I mean, he's notorious for stiffing lawyers, contractors, everyone. I mean, you just line up. I mean, how does the court in their judgment make it clear you've got to cut a check to this person?
Well, first of all, if you want to appeal, you have to post a check, which is about, or a bond, which is the amount of the judgment. So he actually he was going to post a bond. I think this is what happened, and they charge you an amount to post a bond. So let's say if you have to post a $5 million bond. Remember, he already lost a judgment to her of $5 million in the first suit, where the jury found that he had sexually assaulted her in that dressing room. So I think they charge a premium. Let's say it's 20%. So instead of taking $1 million out of your pocket for the premium, I understand that Trump put up real money. So to save the premium, Trump put up real money. And I think that's because it's pretty clear he's going to lose this case. And he figures, you know what, better pay her the amount than to pay her the amount plus the premium when he ends up losing it in the appeals court. Because remember this, if Trump doesn't get elected president, and with all this hoop-de-doo with Haley and, he won Iowa and he won New Hampshire, to me, he's a total loser. I predict right here he's going to lose. He's going to get the nomination. He's going to lose to Biden. And after January 2025, he's going to be finished, politically. He'll have a little movement. He'll sell a lot of stuff. He'll still do the big hustle, right? But he's going to want to pay these people. He's going to want to get these suits behind him. So I think that E. Jean Carroll is going to get the $5 million. I think she's going to get a lot of the damages. And that's why I think he's got his eyes on the prize. Now, how do you actually collect if he fights? If he doesn't post the bond for, like, let's say this one comes back at $10 million. If he doesn't post the bond of $1 million or $2 million, or he doesn't post the money, then they start seizing stuff. And there's Mar-a-Lago, is supposed to be in Florida, kind of a very hard place to collect a judgment to execute on an award. But New York isn't. And there are some things that are in his name. And, it is perilous if you go and put everything in other people's names. Guess what? They may give you a hard time about putting it back in your name. And believe me, Trump, Trump the hustler, Trump the smart aleck, smart guy, he's figuring out, okay, what do I have to pay these people to get these cases off my back? Remember, Trump University, he did pay $25 million for that phony university that he had, and the people who got defrauded thinking they were getting real educational value and they were getting flim-flammed.
That was $25 million. There's a lot of money on that judgment on the university you're talking about. So I do want to. This is fascinating, and it's weird because I really wanted to. It's just happening. It's the news of the moment, and you do draw out a pretty interesting argument for what might and maybe likely will happen to Donald Trump. The future, and I love the detail that you provided, and then I want to ask you about something that has nothing to do with Trump, but it's also really of the moment. The detail that you provided about the posting, that money that he has to post, the $5 million in this case, that was the first judgment. There'll be, I understand, millions more after that, because that's what we're talking about, the damages. That $5 million, does the plaintiff, does E. Jean Carroll have access to that money? Does she get it, or is it held in escrow somewhere?
I'm not exactly sure, but if you recall, there was a financial angel in this case. There was someone, he's connected with one of the media groups, like emerging media groups, and I forget which one it was, but that person was willing to post $10 million. So even if E. Jean Carroll never collects anything, and she's going to collect millions, her lawyers were going to get paid because someone was willing to, back that lawsuit with $10 million. And then obviously the money that they get, that financial angel will, I imagine, be compensated. But that's not, we've had some unusual things in these super high profile cases. It's not usual that someone will give you $10 million to go chase an award that, you might never get. I mean, it might turn out that Trump is so underwater, and, when he falls, the empire may fall behind him. The whole financial empire may be based on people wanting to buy influence from him, speculating on him being president again, and being able to, make a lot of favors. People may not want to stay in the hotels. I wouldn't take a meeting at the Trump Hotel. I don't care how much I wanted to meet the person. I just wouldn't go there. And there are millions and millions of people that he's really disparaged.
Yeah, you're saying once he loses the political shimmer and the possibility of being able to do political favors, that's when he'll have too big a stink on him, and he's going to lose all of the support or much of it. This is a good question. Why aren't, and I just was reporting on this at the beginning of the show because Peter Navaro got that judgment for 6 months in prison for denying the subpoena in the J6 congressional investigation. Why aren't the two people, Bannon and Navaro, staying in jail during their appeal like many criminals have to?
Well, because they have substantial issues on appeal. And as a white-collar criminal defense attorney now, Mark, I'm a huge advocate. I want to say that I've got a dog in this hunt, because I always want my clients, if, God forbid they get convicted, and I try to not have them be convicted. I try to win the case or make some kind of deal where they don't go to prison. But if they do get a prison sentence, we criminal defense attorneys obviously want to have the client stay out on bail. And the argument is, the person's not a flight risk, and in a white collar case, generally they're not a danger to the community or other people in any way, that, it's not very fair to win the appeal and already have served the time. As Alice in Wonderland might say, the service of the sentence first and the winning appeal later. That's Alice in Wonderland, right? What good does it do? You get a 18-month sentence, and 20 months later, after you served, the sentence, the Court of Appeals said, you know what, this was the search was improper, or the trial, you didn't have a fair trial. And, the winning an appeal a lot of times just means having a new trial. But it just tends to, in the real world, lead to better deals, the prosecutor taking a more reasonable view of the case if the case gets remanded by the appeals court for a new trial. So we want the client to stay out during that period of time. And
that's why. That's why in this case,
for someone like Navaro or Bannon, right?
I will get to this execution in a moment, but before I do, just because we're on Trump, I'd like to talk about what's happening to Fani Willis in Georgia. This is a total mess. So she is linked to a prosecutor, romantically linked, and you can fill out the important details here, but I'm wondering to what extent it affects it. It already has. They put I was going to say to what extent it affects the Trump cases. I think they put the case on hold, or at least on pause. Can you speak to this?
Well, the optics are terrible. Legally, it will delay the trial. I never thought the trial of Trump would happen before the election in November 2024. And now it looks just about certain that it won't. And if you make a credible claim that the prosecutor should be disqualified, generally they pause the case and they see if you're right or wrong, because if you have a credible claim, it's not just frivolous. And a lot of Trumps have been frivolous, attacking every prosecutor, attacking so many judges. But here he's got a fairly credible claim. And so it's going to delay the case. And at worst, it could really knock the whole case out. People are talking about the fact that Willis got knocked out of a case against some state office holder. He's now the lieutenant governor. And when she got knocked out of the case because she had apparently raised funds for his opponent, so she's raising funds for his opponent and she's also prosecuting him. He won the motion to disqualify her. And from that, there's supposed to be some board that picks a new prosecutor and the ball gets rolling. That ball has not gotten rolling in 18 months. So if you imagine there were the same delay in this case, talk about justice delayed is justice denied if this trial doesn't go before November 2024. But the allegations are interesting. Let me tell it first from her point of view. I think from her point of view, she found this wonderful prosecutor. She thought he or somebody that he would pick would be the person for the job. This person went around, this would-be special prosecutor. He kind of got the job a little bit like Cheney got to be vice president. Remember, they told Cheney, go find the perfect person. He came back and he said, it's me. I'm the perfect person. The search committee just found the right guy. It's me. It's Cheney, he told W. Anyway, this fellow was supposed to find the perfect prosecutor, and supposedly 3 or 4 people turned it down. Why? It wasn't enough money. It certainly wasn't enough money to go take on Trump and have him and his MAGA base be your enemies for the rest of your life. And, you know the stuff that happens to some of these high-profile people who fight Trump, and they think, look, I'm a human being. Yes, in theory, a prosecutor should take this and have nerves of steel. But guess what? Me, my family, why don't you choose the next guy? So he actually had trouble, this person, finding the right prosecutor. So eventually he said, I'm willing to do it. And she says, you'd be fine. You have really good judgment. That's why I picked you. While that was happening, they ended up having a romantic interest in each other. He was getting divorced from his wife. I guess Willis was single. And so they started having this romantic relationship. And the answer would be, so I picked the perfect person. He was doing a great job. He made $250 an hour, which is not a scandalous rate. Most private attorneys charge quite a bit more than that. They'll say he wasn't that experienced. She'll say he had a lot of confidence in him. She'll say he's doing a very good job so far. He's gotten 4 guilty pleas. What more do you want from the guy? You can see that he's acted competently. And yes, we were both not with somebody. And so we got together romantically. And what's the big deal? That's going to be her story. I think at the end of the day, they have credit card slips showing that he paid for trips to places like the Caribbean, going to the Caribbean, going to beautiful San Francisco Bay. That seems like an odd place to be working on the prosecution together. So it looks like, something was going on there. And, they seem to have a ground for that, and Trump is going to join that motion and try to get her knocked out. Trump's side of the story, of course, is going to be that this is the worst of prosecutorial abuse. This is, in a nutshell, everything that he suffered. These are the trumped up charges from Trump haters, and look at the corruption of these people, right? Their view of it's going to be she picked somebody who's basically inexperienced in this field because she's in love with him. He makes this huge amount of money, over $650,000. It's almost a motive to go after Trump and to cook this whole thing up as a way for this inexperienced lawyer to go make $650,000. And then on top of it, he spends money on her, taking her on these vacations. They're going to try to prove that he paid her share or her way on these vacations. And they're going to say, look, it's totally corrupt, and they should be, he should be thrown off the case. She should be off the case. And someone has suggested, it was an editorial in the New York Times just the other day, that in the interest of moving this case forward and in the interest of the appearance of justice, that she should take a leave of absence, that they should find another special prosecutor promptly to replace the $650,000 man, and just using people in the district attorney's office. They should move forward with the indictments that they have, move forward with the case without her having any involvement, with her having not just recused herself for having a Chinese wall from this case, but her taking a leave of absence from the office altogether, so she would have no even apparent power. She would be on a leave of absence. It probably means the end of her political career, though. She's running for district attorney again this year. If she does that, that's a profile in courage. That's a truly generous thing to do. Someone who really doesn't want to see Trump back in the presidency, I believe, would do that. I don't think it would help her political career. And then in terms of firing this prosecutor, whatever his talents may be, whatever his inexperience may be, there's other people in her office who could prosecute this case. So, but this is really one to watch, because this is
it's so bizarre to see the juxtaposition of Donald Trump. And this is a case in which he couldn't pardon himself. Or he couldn't be, this is a state case about messing with state elections. This is a sacrosanct thing, the election. And it had the staying power, and it just had the power associated with it being sacrosanct. And it's weird that Donald Trump, in typical fashion, doesn't have it now stick to him because of the prosecutor and the DA having these issues. It's utterly, I'm just talking about from a jetliner view of it. It's yet another way in which, in this movie, it's practically like a movie villain. He gets away, from this one in this bizarre fashion.
Mark, I so agree with what you're saying. And, this is how Trump rolls. I think it's fair to say that every time Trump was investigated for some crime, especially at the state level, there were always two investigations. One of it was Trump's, unrelenting investigation of the prosecutor. Supposedly, he wasn't prosecuted before all of this happened for his shenanigans down in Tribeca in New York. And that case would have involved one or more of his children for criminal fraud. But we now know in retrospect that he had something on the DA or on the attorney general who would have brought that case. That what he ended up having on that person came out later. But it was obvious to me, anyway, in my opinion, that Trump had it from the beginning. And it was like, okay, you want to destroy my life? Watch me destroy your life, because I have blackmail on you. And this didn't just come about. Someone didn't happen to see these two people, Willis and this special prosecutor, at the airport getting on a flight to the Caribbean and saying, oh, isn't that interesting? I saw the two of them on TV. No, come on, Mark. You know how this came about? An absolutely assiduous, pursuit by Trump's investigators of anybody who was going to go after him. And of course, Jack Smith, is Caesar's wife. I'm sure he's as clean as he can be. My old friend from the U.S. Attorney's Office, Adam Schiff, is as clean as he could be. What do you think they did to Adam Schiff? I don't know this. There's no inside information. But what do you think Trump and his minions did to Adam Schiff? They probably did everything. They looked everywhere they possibly could. And these people are truly clean in every sense. Schiff, the special
Smith.
Prosecutor.
Yeah.
But you sort of have to be. I mean,
but being both of them, Schiff and Smith, both, as you say, are being X-rayed on so many different levels, on a granular level. This is how it works, and that they're going to make whatever hay they can over even the smallest grain of whatever they can find. Assiduously is a ding word.
Let's go to Alabama and SCOTUS.
Yeah. Now, this is what I want to do now. The Supreme Court this has nothing to do with Trump. The Supreme Court has declined to halt the execution of this Alabama inmate. He's the first to be executed by nitrogen gas. Nitrogen gas is a gas that is naturally occurring in the environment, of course, but if you only are breathing natural nitrogen gas, then you're not breathing oxygen, and that suffocates you, okay? I mean, it's a weird, sad thing to have to speak of, but this guy is in prison for a murder for hire, okay? Now, the Supreme Court said, no, we're not going to intervene. Maybe you can tell us what and this is interesting because you're a defense attorney now, but you've also been a prosecutor. The defense is arguing, I guess, to keep him out of the chair. They were saying this can be cruel and unusual or painful or exceedingly painful, something like that, right, David?
Well, yes. And, this whole death penalty issue has always been fascinating. It's always gotten, it kind of grips us as human beings. And that's why this is what people talk about in law school. This is, while you're having a coffee, in law school, people have different views and bat this around it. And then you just think of our, American idiom from, firing squad to electric chair to this fellow's spiritual advisor just said today that this was going to be a house of horrors. It's all full of these expressions about imposing the death penalty. And just to get the U.S. Supreme Court law clear, for a while, the U.S. Supreme Court did not allow executions as a practical matter. That was sort of something that happened kind of after the Warren Court. But the modern courts, the more modern courts, do allow the death penalty. If a state wants to impose the death penalty, the state can impose the death penalty. And, California, where you think it's unpopular, there was a referendum, and we have the death penalty. Governor Newsom has to, have a moratorium, or else some of our cases would go to the death chamber. Some of the people on death row would actually get death. But for the governor's moratorium, even in liberal blue California, this is a really a controversial issue. And the southern states are known for not only having the death penalty, but imposing the death penalty. So Alabama, Mississippi, Oklahoma, Texas have a fair amount of death penalties that are imposed. And this fellow who, as you say, it's a murder for hire. You can't really go back and say, maybe this is one for the Innocence Project. It looks like, or, excessive punishment. Somebody had this hitman kill his wife. The wife was killed by this fellow who's on death row right now. The husband ended up committing suicide when the investigation turned to him. And then they found a video or something which shows this hitman somehow involved in the murder of the wife. So bad case on the facts. This fellow also has not 9 lives, but he's had at least 2 lives, because in a fascinating twist on this case, he actually went all the way through his appeals, his habeas petitions and everything. He had death imposed. He was getting the death penalty a year ago when they couldn't find a vein.
They literally were, and David's right. I mean, they literally were, into this guy. They just couldn't find it. Imagine that. It's bizarre. It's like something out of a movie.
And that's one of his issues. His issues that it's cruel and unusual punishment. Yes, the death penalty may be approved by the U.S. Supreme Court as not in and of itself cruel and unusual punishment, but to have it, to have this sort of second chance. And I think one of the reasons that the U.S. Supreme Court turned the case down and won't stop his execution, at least so far, in the ruling they made, I think it was just yesterday, it was unanimous. It was without much explanation. It was a denial without any dissents. And you could dissent. None of the justices dissented from it. And I think it's because we've been there. We've evaluated all of his claims a year ago.
Sure,
and we said he'd get the death penalty. He just got whatever you want to call it. He had this sort of second life. So now he's back. So then he says, well, look, I want to have this oxygen. I want to have this nitrogen poison killing. I want to have that. Not what I had last time or anything else, because he thought they couldn't set up the protocol. There has to be a protocol and very well explained in a state policy, how you go about doing it. And like, here are the 20 steps. We're going to do this. We're going to do that other thing. Alabama, once he said, I'm okay with this nitrogen thing. I mean, given that given that I'm going to be executed, this is the means by which I'm kind of okay with. So then Alabama, right?
He ordered the
around,
nitrogen off the execution menu. Is that what you're telling us?
It made a very fast protocol. So now
Right.
they've complied with the protocol and they're ready to execute him in the next 24 hours. And he's gone to the circuit court too. But it looks like all of his claims will be denied. And, what he says is that, now that he's really thinking about it, looking at the protocol, he's liable to vomit. He'll vomit into the mask. It won't work just right. He'll end up being sort of worse than waterboarded. He'll be sort of tortured in this execution of him. Now he wants a firing squad.
Is that he's ordering off the menu now? Do they have a firing squad?
They won't give him any food. He doesn't. They're not going to give him a last meal. He's the first person maybe executed in American history who doesn't get a last meal.
That's right, because then you have the.
He's going to vomit in the mask. So that's it. So he's not getting a last meal, and he's a cat with at least 2 lives, and he's hoping to be spared. It doesn't look like any court's going to spare him, and it's just sort of like weird. The U.S. Supreme Court, this sort of second time being put to death, is that cruel and unusual punishment? On balance, like I said, it's hard. These cases like that where it's a hitman who looks like that they have evidence on him. By the way, he did it for $1,000. Mark,
that's so
talk
sick.
about life
so
being
sick.
cheap.
Yeah.
For $1,000, this woman is dead, and he's on death row. And if you go back, you read like In Cold Blood, you read something like that. Why is that so gripping? These stories are just really, really gripping. We can talk about how the U.S. Supreme Court is going to cut back on the administrative state, and we could talk about that for hours. But this is what grips people, and it's just human nature. I think that it grips.
Well, David asked in the chat, do they at least put the victim to sleep before they suffocate them? No. Well, the idea is that this will put you to sleep. The idea is that you're being suffocated essentially. That's literally what's happening, because your body's not getting the oxygen it needs, and so you do go to sleep. And as we've just said,
Mark, Alabama says it works. Alabama's side of it is that it works very well, and it's used in Europe for assisted suicides, and it works fine in Europe. But it's the first time that it's ever been done in America, and so that also makes it unprecedented and makes the case just fascinating.
This is my audience, David. How about the guillotine? Quick, easy, positive reaction. Wow, that's grim.
Well, that's not fake. That's real. Good day, sir.
Yeah, that is right. But
there are military provisions how you're put to death. It's sort of important in the law of war, and I think some people are entitled, or were in the old days, entitled to a firing squad. That sort of thing. It's symbolic too, how you're put to death, and it has meaning. It has meaning for people, even though at the end of all of them, you're dead.
Right, exactly. But I mean, the suffering associated with it and all the rest, as you say, that's all in the details. There are many people in the chat that are saying, I have tough to find veins also. The phlebotomist can't find it. No, the doctor can't find it. Well, everybody just stay out of the death chair, and you'll likely not have to. And boy, we haven't executed anyone. What were you saying, David, about, we have it here, but what the last time somebody was executed in California? It's been quite a while.
Someone down in San Diego not only killed somebody, but then he ate his fries. And for some reason, that was one of those things. Like I say, people have really strong emotions about all these kind of things. There's mercy, but there's also retribution, right? And if you stop and think about it for a minute, if it were a loved one, and then you can make it more aggravated. You can have a terrorist. Merrick Garland in the Department of Justice asked for the death penalty under Biden for this fellow on the. There's a walkway in New York City by the old World Trade Center, and somebody went down there and just a terrorist and killed a lot of people. He meant to kill them. He did kill them. He was unrepentant about it, and they asked for the death penalty on him. But the jury has to be unanimous, at least. In the federal system, and the jury wasn't unanimous. The jury was not unanimous, so that person got life. And if you remember, this is a Bill Clinton story. Bill Clinton wanted to show when he was running for president in 1992 that he was tough on crime. He wasn't one of those, liberal, soft on crime Democrats. And he went back to Arkansas and supervised the imposition of the death penalty, the executions of 2 people who had a very low IQ. I'm not trying to bash Clinton. But it helped people reinforce the idea that, okay, he's not like Dukakis. He's not wringing his hands. He's not saying, oh, I don't know what I would do if someone killed and raped my wife. It was a way of graphically showing, I'm tough on crime. And so for some people, this really sort of is their views on whether they're tough on crime or not. There's other ways to be tough or supposedly soft on crime. Like in my kinds of cases, you see judges, we all have an idea with certain judges, whether they're tougher or not, on crime, on sentencing, on stuff like that. But when you come to the death penalty, it evokes so many different emotions, different positions. By the way, I've never asked for the death penalty when I was a prosecutor. I did have a first-degree murder case where I asked for life in prison against someone who, with deliberation and malice, murdered the postal carrier. And
wow.
she was on her route singing, and that's a federal crime because she was in the course of her federal duty. So I did ask for life.
Wait a minute. I'm sorry. I was just about to wrap up, but now I'm going to warn our stations. We'll run a little bit late. Tell me, why did she kill the postal carrier?
It was a man who killed the postal carrier.
Okay.
He committed prior offenses, and it was
what was the motive?
Well, it seemed like, as I recall the case, the motive was that he'd been dissed by the gangs. He wanted to show the gangs that he was a tough guy, so he was going to kill somebody. And the first person who came to his door was the friendly neighborhood female postal carrier, whistling while she worked. And there was one of those screen doors where she couldn't really see in, but he could see out from inside the house. And he blasted her right through the screen door. And then he shot her a second time, which helped me prove my, premeditation. That if he didn't premeditate before, if he really thought it was a mistake, he thought it was some gangbanger coming to get him, why did he shoot the second time? And he had sort of a mental defense without a psychiatrist. In those days, this was sort of like the Twinkie defense. This was like the diminished capacity. But it must have been something wrong with him. Why would he have done that? There was sort of a psychiatric defense with no psychiatrist behind it.
Yeah.
And he was duly convicted in federal court. But I didn't ask for the death penalty. I've had one murder case where I was able to get my client cleared of the murder charges and just for lesser charges. I mean, he was running with the gang, but it was much lesser charges, and it wasn't that he was.
Look at you, the gang prosecutor and the gang defender. He's worked both sides of it, everybody. Yeah.
Tell you one last story. When the family came to me, I said, it's the Ventura County Sheriff's Department, and they said, you beat the FBI and the IRS. Why don't you take a crack at this case brought by the Ventura?
This is as a defense. This is when David's a defense attorney.
This was as a criminal defense attorney, but that was not a death penalty case or what they call life with. Well, it was potentially a life without the possibility of parole.
You're saying that they came to you and you said that you fought the law and you won. Make it win for us.
Well, I fought the law and the law won, but they said to me when I sort of balked a little bit at taking the case. And I remember that I had this murder case when I was a federal prosecutor. So I worked with actually LAPD murder officials who, unlike what you heard in OJ, at least in my case, when I was a federal prosecutor, they were wonderful. The LAPD homicide detectives who worked that case. So, but she had that line that I always remembered. She said, look, if you could beat the FBI and the IRS, take a crack against the Ventura County Sheriff's Department.
Well, that's what I mean. I mean, you fought the law and you won over the law in those cases that she cited. So she knew who to get on the case, and it worked.
Thank you, Mark.
David, so glad that you can spend time with us. Thank you. I look forward to Thursdays to be able to dump all of these legal questions in front of you, and you help sort them all out. Look forward to.
Mark, you're going to lift the sanctions, right? Because it was really a terrible drive there.
Yes, I accept your excuse, and you are completely forgiven. There he is, Katzadamus, the great predictor, as depicted by one of our viewer listeners. That is David Katz as Nostradamus, and great stuff. Thank you, pal.
Will you have him draw me without my glasses, Mark?
Those are your credibility glasses. Come on. All right, we'll see if we can't get another one going. David Katz, everybody. Loving it. Bye, David.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Wow. That was an extended session with David Katz. That was really good. I loved it. The audience very into it as well. I was seeing it in the chat. David Katz, just don't be later than MT. Yeah, I sometimes will start the show a couple minutes late too, David Katz. So don't
getting your Coachella Valley coffee going.
I got to make sure everything's in place. I work tirelessly, as you know, to make certain everything is just so. Yeah. Bravo, David, says Julie. David Katz is loved.
Yeah, he is.
He is really loved here. So very cool. Thanks, DK. M.O. The Katz is strong. Says, wow. Always an excellent session with David Katz, says Delwood. Yeah.
We got this one also with some money on it.
How
too.
about it with some money?
Mm-hmm.
Put some money where your praise is. We're making money off of David Katz, $5.
Big shout out.
Big shout out. Thank you, Cindy. Thanks for having David Katz on every week.
You better take him out to lunch again.
Yeah. We had a great lunch. God, he's such an interesting guy, as you can see. I mean, the breadth of what he's done, both as a prosecutor and as a defense attorney, pretty amazing.
Here's something interesting. Ricky says my ex was on the prosecution side in that case in Ventura.
Wow, is that right?
Yeah, interesting.
Wow.
Wow, yeah, what happened there?
Man, so your ex was on the losing side of the case that David Katz won. Man, that's pretty great.
You don't want to go up against Katz in court.
Don't want to go up against Katz.
No.
You don't.
He'll take you down.
That's who you're going up against.
Yeah. Maud says, thank you, David. I have to ask, though, to follow up on David's request that Katzadamus be done without his credibility glasses. I don't see why anyone would want to lose the credibility glasses. As you know, I wear them to enhance and amplify my credibility. I wear them right here on the show. David wears them, but then he takes them off, or he'll use them or not, depending on his visit. So in the Katzadamus depiction of David, he is wearing the credibility glasses that he oftentimes will take on and take off, as I've said. But now David is requesting that the Katzadamus artist perhaps create another visage of David without the credibility glasses visage. So if you're out there, I don't remember who sent us that depiction of David, Albert, but
yeah, let me try to dig for that.
Yeah, I mean, it was a long time ago, but it would be great if we could get it without, per David's request, without the glasses. Thank you, David Katz. Thank you, Mark Kim Albertoni, for bringing us excellent guests. Ren with a 10 spot.
Big shout out.
Super sticker. Thank you. Making more money off of David Katz. I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Really, really cool. So, yeah, I live in Idaho, says old Elmo, but I love your Bay Area perspective. Keep up the good work, guys. Wow, old Elmo, big shout out to Idaho.
Big shout out.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
For the tear.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for the tear. This is for the tear tissues, just because I am on the verge of crying often because of the support I get on the show. Vilma Devlin, come on with a super sticker for $5.
Big shout out.
Thank you. And
I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna cry.
I'm not going to cry, but I am close.
I'm not gonna cry.
All the time. As I get older, I'm closer to tears all the time. I don't know why, but it is true. I'm touched by many things in ways that produce that emotional reaction in me. And honestly, support for the show and some of the sweet things that people have said about the show, it does bring me to that emotional brink. That's just a fact. So
the way it is.
The Mark Thompson Show.
If you're just joining us on Thursdays, we talk about the planet. It's a segment we call it The Planet Stupid. But today, we got word from Belinda that she had to go to the doctor. And, she really have fought a battle against cancer for over a year. I mean, it was with demanding and gruesome, oftentimes, treatments. And she's beat back that cancer. And now she suddenly had to go to the doctor. And she said, so I'm just being frank and honest with the audience, as I always am. And so for that reason, we had to last minute sideline her segment. But we will have her back next week. And I'm so excited to have her. And there's a lot of stuff always going on with the climate, with the planet, with the forever chemicals that are entering our environment, with plastics, with every issue that you can imagine that needs to take center stage. And might I say, just from a political standpoint, is increasingly taking center stage among younger voters. Younger voters realize, hey, guys, you guys messed this up. You've really allowed the chemical plastics industry and corporate polluters to run amok. And we need to get a hold of this. Otherwise, we're not going to have a habitat to live in anymore. So from a political standpoint, it's a smart thing as well. I have, Albert, I'm not sure if, I'm just looking now. Do I have to wrap up, or what is the
Mark Thompson Show?
I don't know do I have to wrap up, or do I have time for an email or an update?
Yeah,
or what?
maybe like a couple emails. We have enough time for that.
I've received a lot of positive letters.
Oh, yeah, I have. First, I want to say thank you and shout out to the newest Patreon member who I think joined during the show. Her name is Sharon.
Big shout out.
Big shout out. And thank you for being a Patreon subscriber or member, however you want to think of yourself. Supporter is what I always say. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I haven't used the thank you.
This thing is ready to pop, people.
No, I haven't used it.
Thank you.
That's what I wanted. Thank you. All of you, the thank you goes to all of you who are Patreon
Thank you.
Yeah, Patreon or PayPal subscribers. So really cool. It is the way that you support us on an ongoing basis. James Slayton points out that the Daily Mail, again, if you want to reach us via email, it's themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com. themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com. And James Slayton says, Daily Mail is picking on Oakland. They call it the most dangerous square mile in America.
Well, they did lose an In-N-Out.
Yeah. And the reason they lost the In-N-Out was?
Crime.
Yeah, they said it was dangerous. Too dangerous.
Yeah, and that I frequent that area because I play a couple golf courses over there, and that's one place I never park. I just literally in and out over there. And that Raising Cane's is brand new, and we don't have a lot of those in the Bay Area. And that's just a very unfortunate location that it's right next to that In-N-Out. And I think they're only drive-through only. You can't eat and dine in.
We're planning.
Yeah, that's what you want there. You want to be able to stay in the car. This from Karen on the email, and I am used to reading.
I've received a lot of positive letters.
But I'm used to reading kind of negative comments. I did get a couple of those. I'll go back, maybe revisit those more tomorrow. But this is from Karen. Hi, Mark. I know you always like positive letters. I listen to your show every day. I don't always catch it live, so I listen to the podcast. I listen often when I'm working out at the gym, and I'm constantly laughing out loud at things you, Kim, and Albert say. Isn't that true? I wonder sometimes what people think when they hear me laughing at seemingly nothing.
Kim, how are you?
Thanks for making my day every day. You, in particular, are very funny.
Albert, thank you.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah. And you put a smile on my face thanks to you, Kim, Albert, and Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah.
Nice.
P.S. No buts. Usually I say, people always send me a note saying, hey, I really like the show. I watch it every day, but I think you do the drops too much, or I think you don't do enough drops, or I like it when why can't you do this, and why don't you do that? Karen from Chico. How about it, Karen from Chico, everybody? I like it. Well, I'm someone who's drawn to criticism, so I hate to go out on something positive.
Which one do you use, Mark Thompson?
Yeah, that's what I'm used to. But we are going to go out on something positive. Maybe this is the beginning of a new day, of a new chapter in the show's history.
There's never been
Maybe
anything
this will
like
be
this.
Positivity that will begin to inform this show on a regular basis. It could happen. It could happen.
What?
It
You're
could
a real
happen.
ray of sunshine over there. Yeah.
I'm just saying that we could begin a new period of optimism on this show.
Who is having that conversation?
I'm saying it possible, and it will all be because of Karen from Chico. Wow. All right. The After Party Live
I'm
next.
Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Enjoy the After Party Live.
I can all right. Bye.
We'll see you tomorrow with our Friday show, which is legend. Until then, bye-bye.